The massive council chamber grew silent. Over 300 alien representatives from across the galaxy stopped talking at once. All eyes turned to the human standing at the center of the room. Ambassador Michael Chen took a deep breath. He was not a tall man, but today he seemed to fill the entire chamber with his presence. His black diplomatic uniform stood out among the colorful robes and unusual body shapes of the alien representatives. For 200 years, humanity has been part of this Galactic Council, Chen said, his voice clear and strong. For 200 years we have shared our technology, fought in your wars, healed your sick, and helped build a better galaxy. The chamber remained silent. Even the usually noisy Vrexians with their clicking mandibles were quiet. And for 200 years, Chen continued, you have treated us as the primitive species, the newcomers, the children at the adults' table. A few aliens shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The 7-armed Quilarians exchanged nervous glances. Today, that ends, Chen said. He pulled a small metal sphere from his pocket. With a press of his thumb, the sphere floated up and projected a large holographic image. It showed a timer counting down from 72 Grekreise. 72 standard hours, Chen explained. That's how long humanity is giving the Galactic Council to reconsider its position on the illegal mining operations in our outer colonies. The Thalosian ambassador, a tall reptilian creature with golden scales, stood up. This is outrageous. The Council already ruled on this matter. Yes, Chen replied coldly. You ruled against us, despite clear evidence that Thalosian mining corporations have been stealing resources from human worlds. You ruled against us just as you always do when human interests are at stake. The council leader, an ancient blue-skinned Arcturian, raised his hand for calm. Ambassador Chen, surely we can discuss this matter further. There is no need for whatever this countdown represents. Chen smiled, but there was no warmth in it. The countdown is simple. When it reaches 0, humanity withdraws completely from the Galactic Council and all associated treaties. All human diplomats, peacekeepers, doctors, engineers, and traders will return to Earth space. All human technology support will end. All access to human worlds will be restricted. Now the chamber erupted in noise. The idea was unthinkable. Humans were everywhere in galactic society. Their ships made up nearly half the peacekeeping fleet. Their medical knowledge saved countless lives. Their engineers maintained systems across dozens of worlds. You cannot do this, shouted the Plex ambassador, her translucent skin flashing with red lights of anger. The economic damage would be catastrophic. Yes, Chen agreed. It would. Perhaps you should have thought of that before treating us as second-class members for 2 centuries. The council leader stood, using his ceremonial staff for support. Ambassador Chen, please. The council needs time to discuss this. You have 72 hours, Chen replied, gesturing to the hovering countdown. Not 1 minute more. With that, he turned and walked out of the chamber, leaving chaos behind him. 20 minutes later, the inner circle of the council met in a private room. Only the most powerful 12 species were part of this group. The room was secured against all listening devices. This is a bluff, said Drath, the Thalosian ambassador, his tail swishing angrily. The humans need us more than we need them. The Arcturian High Minister shook his aged blue head. I fear you are wrong, Drath. Without the humans, our economy collapses within months. Their ships carry 1/3 of all galactic trade. Their medical technologies save billions of lives each year. They're primitives, Drath hissed. They've only had faster-than-light travel for 3 centuries. The Quilarian representative, managing all 7 of her arms with perfect grace, tapped a data screen. These primitives have developed more new technologies in 3 centuries than the Thalosians have in the last 1,000 years. Drath's scales darkened in anger, but he couldn't argue with the facts. We must find a compromise, the Arcturian said. The humans are not asking for much, just an investigation into the mining operations. An investigation would reveal too much, Drath muttered. The Arcturian's eyes narrowed. So you admit the accusations are true? Before Drath could answer, the door opened. A young aide rushed in, breaking all protocols. Forgive me, the aide said, clearly frightened. But you need to see this immediately. The aide activated the room's main display. It showed a fleet of ships leaving the Council space station. The human diplomatic fleet has just requested departure clearance, the aide explained. All 342 human ships are leaving. Now. The Council members watched in shocked silence. The humans weren't waiting for the countdown to end. They were already going. Aboard the human diplomatic vessel Tenacity, Ambassador Chen sat alone in his office. The stars streaked past the viewport as the ship prepared to jump to faster-than-light speed. His communications panel chimed. Encrypted message from Earth Command, sir. Chen touched the panel. Display. The message was simple. Operation Self-Reliance is now active. Bring our people home. Chen closed his eyes for a moment. It was really happening. After years of planning, humanity was finally standing up for itself. Another chime from the panel. Sir, our surveillance drones are detecting unusual fleet movements from multiple Council species. Chen wasn't surprised. Show me. The screen displayed dozens of alien warships changing positions. Some appeared to be forming defensive groups. Others looked ready for attack. The Council species are preparing for the worst. His security officer reported. Some for war, some for protection. Chen nodded. They're beginning to understand what our absence will mean. As the Tenacity prepared to jump to light speed, Chen looked one last time at the massive Council station growing smaller behind them. For 200 years, humanity had tried to be good galactic citizens. They had fought alongside aliens against the terrible Vorax invasion. They had shared their unique technologies. They had healed, built, and protected. And in return, they had been treated as lesser beings. No more, Chen whispered to himself as the stars blurred and the ship jumped away. No more. 3 weeks had passed since humanity's departure. The effects were spreading across the galaxy like cracks in glass. On the trading world of Meraxis Prime, Merchant Zostalin closed his shop early for the third day in a row. His storage rooms, usually filled with goods from 17 different systems, were half empty. No human traders meant no human goods. And without human transport ships, even non-human products weren't reaching their destinations. Another wasted day, Zaz muttered to himself, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence, a sign of stress among his species. He wasn't alone. All across the commercial district, shops were closing early or not opening at all. The local news played on public screens throughout the marketplace. Markets in 17 systems have crashed as human goods disappear from shelves. The Council Economic Committee predicts a 30% drop in trade over the next month if the human situation remains unresolved. Zaz turned away from the screen. He didn't need experts to tell him what was happening. The galaxy had grown dependent on humans, and now they were gone. In the Central Medical Facility on Proxima Centauri III, Dr. Ilara Novoshi stared at the nearly empty supply cabinet. The human-made medications were almost gone. How many doses of Revitolin do we have left? She asked the hospital supply manager. The Centaurian checked his datapad. 11 doses. At our normal usage rate, that's about 3 days' worth. Dr. Novoshi closed her eyes briefly. Revitolin was a human-developed medication that helped patients recover from major surgery. Without it, recovery times doubled, and complication rates tripled. And the other human medications? Similar situation, some worse. A nurse hurried into the supply room. Doctor, we have an emergency, a transport crash with multiple injuries. Dr. Novoshi nodded, already calculating how to ration their remaining supplies. Prepare the operating rooms and contact the other hospitals in the sector. See if anyone has extra Revitolin they can spare. But she knew the answer already. Everyone was running out. Admiral Kavath of the Rigelian Defense Force reviewed the latest reports on his command ship. The peacekeeping fleet, suddenly missing 40% of its ships and personnel, was stretched beyond capacity. Another pirate attack in the Outer Rim, his second-in-command reported. The settlement on Taros 4 was raided. The pirates took everything of value and damaged their atmospheric processors before leaving. Kavoth's ridged forehead darkened with anger. Casualties? 17 dead, 43 injured. By the time our nearest patrol ship arrived, the pirates were long gone. Kavoth slammed his fist on the table. These attacks are happening all over the Rim worlds now. The pirates know we don't have enough ships to protect everyone. His communications officer interrupted. Admiral, urgent message from Central Command. Kavoth activated his screen. The message was brief but shocking. The Thalosian Empire had formally annexed 2 disputed mining colonies near their border, colonies that had been under Council protection. What was the Council's response? Kavoth demanded. His officer looked down at his datapad. They issued a formal condemnation. A condemnation? Kavoth roared. Not military action, not sanctions. No, sir. Just the condemnation. Kavoth grabbed his communications device and hurled it across the room, where it shattered against the wall. His crew had never seen their commander lose control like this. We need the humans back, Kavoth said, his voice suddenly quiet. Without them, we are not just weaker. We are becoming something worse. We are becoming cowards. On Vega Prime, the galaxy's largest manufacturing center, production lines sat idle. In Factory Complex 7, alien engineers and technicians gathered around a silent assembly system. Chief Engineer Trell, a squat, 6-limbed Garnaxian, studied the diagnostic panel with all 4 of his eyes. It's the same as the others, he told his team. The system is locked with a human maintenance protocol. Without their codes, we can't restart it. Can't we bypass it? Asked one of the younger technicians. Trell made the whistling sound that was his species' equivalent of a bitter laugh. We've tried. Their security measures are too good. The system detects any tampering and shuts down even harder. What about the other factories? Someone asked. All the same, Trell said. Half the production lines on Vega Prime are stopped. The humans designed and maintained them, and now... He gestured at the silent machines. A manager entered the factory floor, her floating platform bringing her to eye level with the workers. The Council has ordered us to restart production by any means necessary, she announced. Bonuses for anyone who can get these lines working again. The engineers exchanged looks. Bonuses were nice, but impossible was impossible. Perhaps, Trell suggested carefully, the Council should consider meeting the humans' demands instead. The manager's skin flushed a deep purple, a warning sign. That is not your concern, engineer. Focus on your job. But as she floated away, Trell noticed the worried look in her eyes. Everyone was starting to realize the same truth. The galaxy needed humans more than they had ever admitted. In the Council chamber, an emergency session had been called. The room was in chaos. The Thalosians have gone too far, shouted the representative from Altair. They annexed those colonies knowing we couldn't stop them. The Thalosian ambassador's scales rippled with color, a sign of pleasure in his species. The colonies were always rightfully ours. We are simply correcting a historical mistake. You're testing the Council's weakness, accused another representative. And we all know why we're weak right now. The Arcturian High Minister called for order, but the shouting continued. 3 representatives were threatening to follow humanity's example and withdraw from the Council. Others demanded military action against the Thalosians that everyone knew wasn't possible with their reduced fleet. In a side chamber, a small group of senior representatives met privately. This is falling apart faster than we predicted, said the Quilarian representative, all 7 of her arms moving nervously. The Shindari representative, a being of living crystal, spoke in his musical voice. We need to ask ourselves a difficult question. What if they never intended to come back? The others stared at him. What do you mean? Asked the Arcturian. What if this was their plan all along? The Zindari continued. To show us how dependent we've become on them? To watch us tear ourselves apart without them? The room fell silent as they considered this possibility. Then we have gravely underestimated humanity, the Arcturian finally said. And we are paying the price for our arrogance. Outside, in the main chamber, the shouting continued to grow louder. 6 months had passed since humanity's departure from the Galactic Council. The Sol system, home to Earth and humanity, had transformed. Captain Nera, commanding the Arcturian science vessel Distant Observer, watched the sensor readings with growing concern. Her mission was simple: monitor the human home system and report back to the Council. Another defense platform activated near Mars. Her sensor officer reported. That makes 47 in total around that planet alone. Nera nodded. The humans had been busy. Massive defense stations now orbited every planet in their system. Weapons platforms floated in strategic positions throughout the asteroid belt. Military vessels patrolled in organized formations. But most impressive, and concerning, was the shield. The Aurora shield, a technology that humans had claimed was still theoretical, now visibly shimmered around Earth's atmosphere. The beautiful, blue-green ripples of energy were both stunning and terrifying. How many diplomatic missions have tried to enter the system this month? Nera asked. 17, her communications officer replied. All turned away at the outer boundary by automated. Warning systems. Nera stared at the main view screen showing the distant blue dot of Earth. Move us into position Alpha 6, she ordered. I want a closer look at their orbital shipyards. As the ship changed position, staying carefully outside the boundary humans had established, Nera wondered what the Council would do with her report. Not that it mattered. The Council seemed incapable of doing anything useful these days. Inside the human fortress, Earth was humming with activity. In New Beijing, massive, manufacturing complexes worked around the clock. Workers streamed into the facilities, each shift replacing the last without pause. Li Wei, a production supervisor at Complex 9, checked the daily output numbers with satisfaction. His section was exceeding its targets again. Another good day, he told his assistant. Defense module production is up 12%. His assistant, Rodriguez, nodded. The new automated assembly lines are working perfectly. We've never been this efficient. Li looked out over the factory floor. Robots and humans worked side by side, building components that would eventually become part of Earth's defense system. Before their withdrawal from the Council, such advanced manufacturing had been focused on export goods, products designed for alien worlds and alien needs. Now, everything they built was for humanity. How does your family feel about the withdrawal? Rodriguez asked suddenly. Li considered the question. My parents were nervous at first. They thought the aliens might attack us, but now... He gestured at the busy factory. Everyone has work. The economy is strong, and we don't have to bend to alien demands anymore. My kids love it, Rodriguez said with a smile. They say school is more interesting now that they're learning about human history and human science instead of so much focus on alien cultures. Li nodded. That was something he'd heard from many people. Across Earth, there was a renewed focus on human achievements and human potential. Without the constant comparison to older, more advanced alien civilizations, humanity seemed to be standing taller. At Harvard University, Professor Takahashi's lecture hall was packed beyond capacity. Students sat in the aisles and stood along the walls to hear his popular lecture series, A Galaxy Without Us, Their Problem Now. The Thalosian Empire has seized 2 more colony worlds this week, Takahashi told the crowd, pointing to a holographic map. That brings their total to 6 illegal annexations since our withdrawal. A student raised her hand. Professor, shouldn't we be concerned about this? Those were council worlds with millions of inhabitants. Takahashi nodded. A fair question. And yes, we should care about the suffering of sentient beings everywhere. But remember, these are the same council species that rejected our petitions for protection when our own colonies were under threat. Another student spoke up. But doesn't this prove that the council needs us? That we should return to help maintain peace? The council had peace, Takahashi replied, his voice growing firm. They had peace because humanity provided nearly half of all peacekeeping ships and personnel. They had peace because we gave them what they needed, without demanding equal respect or equal rights in return. He paused, looking around the room. Sometimes people or aliens only value what they've lost. Sometimes the only way forward is to let them experience that loss fully. The lecture hall was silent for a moment, Then a voice from the back called out, "So what happens next? Do we just stay here forever?" Takahashi smiled. "That depends entirely on what the galaxy learns from our absence, and how they approach us when they finally realize what they've lost." On the Council homeworld, things were deteriorating rapidly. The Thelosians had seized 4 more colony worlds. 3 member species had threatened to follow humanity's example and withdraw. The economy of 17 systems was in serious trouble. In a closed session that was supposed to be secret, the Council argued bitterly among themselves. "We must take military action against the Thelosians," demanded the representative from Proxima Centauri, whose people had close ties to humanity before the withdrawal. The Thelosian ambassador hissed in response, "With what fleet? Half your ships were human-made or human-crewed. You have nothing. We could offer the humans a better position on the Council," suggested a representative from a minor world. "Give them more voting power." The Arcturian High Minister shook his blue head sadly. "We sent that offer 2 months ago. They didn't even respond." "Because they know they have us trapped," said the Jindari representative, his crystalline body glinting under the chamber lights. "The question we need to ask ourselves is this: what if they never intended to come back? What if this was their plan all along, to watch us tear ourselves apart?" The chamber fell silent. It was a question many had been thinking but few had dared to ask. "They wouldn't be so cruel," said a representative from a world known for its empathy. The Zindari's crystal face couldn't show expressions, but his voice carried a certain sadness. "It's not cruelty, it's strategy. They gave us every chance to treat them fairly. We refused. Now they're showing us the consequences." Unknown to the Council members, their supposedly secure session was being recorded. By that evening, the entire conversation had leaked to galactic media. Citizens across 100 worlds watched their leaders bicker and panic. And somewhere, in a monitoring station on the edge of the Sol system, human intelligence officers also watched the recording. They said nothing. They simply added it to their growing collection of evidence that their strategy was working exactly as planned. Earth waited in its fortress of technology and military power. And as public opinion polls showed an approval rating of over 90% for the withdrawal, humanity seemed quite content to keep waiting for as long as necessary. The ball, as the old human saying went, was in the alien court now. The diplomatic stalemate broke on an ordinary Tuesday morning. Earth's orbital defense system detected a small vessel approaching from the edge of the solar system. Unlike the many diplomatic ships that had been turned away over the past months, this one was different. It was unmarked, running on minimal power and broadcasting on emergency channels. "Unknown vessel, this is Earth Defense Command," the duty officer transmitted. "You have entered restricted space. Identify yourself or be removed." The response came back weak and filled with static. "My name is Telix. I was heir to the Thelosian Empire. I seek asylum on Earth." In the control room, Commander Sarah Wu looked at her second-in-command with surprise. "A Thelosian? Requesting asylum? It could be a trick," her deputy suggested. Wu nodded. "Scan the vessel. Any weapons? Other life forms?" The scan results appeared on her screen. "One life form, Thelosian, no weapons detected. The ship appears damaged." Wu made her decision. "Direct the vessel to Outpost Delta for quarantine and security checks, and alert Admiral Reyes immediately." 6 hours later, Admiral Helena Reyes studied the young Thelosian through a security screen. Telix was smaller than most of his kind, his golden scales dulled by what looked like poor health. He sat nervously in the holding room, his tail twitching, occasionally a sign of anxiety in Thelosians. "He's been cooperating fully," the security officer reported. "Surrendered all personal items willingly. Medical scans show he's malnourished and exhausted." "What's his story?" Reyes asked. "He claims to have escaped from his own people because he has information vital to humanity. He won't tell anyone except a high-ranking human official." Reyes considered for a moment. "I'll speak with him." When she entered the room, Telix rose to his feet in what appeared to be a show of respect. "Admiral Reyes," he said, his translator converting his hissing speech to standard human language. "Thank you for seeing me." "Why are you here, Telix?" Reyes asked directly. "Your people have been seizing Council worlds since our withdrawal. You're not exactly popular with humans right now." Telix's scales shifted color slightly, a sign of emotional distress. "What if I told you that the Thelosian expansion wasn't what it appears to be? What if I told you it was orchestrated not by my people's government, but by the Council itself?" Reyes kept her face expressionless, but her interest was piqued. "Explain." "The Security Directorate of the Council," Telix said, his voice dropping lower. "They approached my father, the Emperor, with a plan. Create a crisis that would force humans back to the diplomatic table, take advantage of your absence to seize territories, threaten stability, cause economic disruption." "Why would your father agree to this?" Reyes asked. "The Directorate promised him full control of the seized territories once humans returned to the Council. They promised technology, resources, and political support." Telix looked down. "My father has always been greedy, but I never thought he would become a puppet for the Council's schemes." "Do you have proof of this?" Reyes asked, her mind already racing with the implications. Telix tapped the metallic band around his wrist. "Everything is here. Meeting recordings, secret communications, plans for future annexations." He looked up at Reyes. "I stole this from my father's private archives. When he discovered what I had done, he ordered my execution. I barely escaped with my life." Reyes studied the young Thelosian. If he was telling the truth, this changed everything they thought they knew about the past 6 months. "Why come to us?" she asked. "Why not go to another Council species?" Telix gave the hissing sound that was a Thelosian's version of bitter laughter. "Because they're all part of it, Admiral. At least all the major powers are. This wasn't just about getting humans back to the table. This was about ensuring you came back desperate, willing to accept any terms to restore order." By the next morning, Earth's intelligence agencies had verified Telix's information. The evidence was compelling and matched patterns they had observed, but couldn't fully explain. Admiral Reyes presented the findings to Earth's Unified Command, the leadership group that had formed after the withdrawal. "It appears we were right about the Council's disrespect, but wrong about its nature," Reyes explained to the assembled leaders. "This wasn't cultural misunderstanding. It was strategy." The room was silent as the implications sank in. Several Council species had become dependent on exploiting human innovation and military protection, Reyes continued. But they feared our growing influence and potential to eventually dominate. So they developed a long-term strategy. Use us while keeping us politically weak. "And this coordinated campaign of disrespect toward our delegates?" asked President Chen, formerly Ambassador Chen. "Deliberate," Reyes confirmed. "Designed to keep us frustrated enough to contribute, but not confident enough to demand full equality." The defense minister leaned forward. "So this crisis since our withdrawal, the Thelosian expansion, the economic disruption, the Council's inability to act, it was all planned? To force us back on their terms?" "Not entirely," Reyes said. "They expected us to return quickly within weeks or months. They never anticipated we would be so self-sufficient, so willing to remain apart. The longer crisis we're seeing now is their plan spiraling out of control." President Chen's expression was grim. "They underestimated us, again." "There's more," Reyes said, her voice growing more serious. "Telix's data included long-range sensor readings from the edge of charted space. The Vorax have been detected." Everyone in the room stiffened. The Vorax, a vicious hive mind species that had nearly overwhelmed the galaxy a century ago before being pushed back by a united galactic force, led primarily by human generals. "How many?" the defense minister asked quietly. "A small fleet. Scout ships, most likely. But their trajectory is clear. They're heading directly toward Thelosian territory, where the Council's fragmented forces can't possibly mount an adequate defense." President Chen finished the thought. Reyes nodded. "Exactly." The room fell silent again. The implications were clear. The galaxy was about to face a threat that it couldn't handle without humanity. The Council's plan had backfired in the worst possible way. So, Chen finally said, "What do we do with this information?" Admiral Reyes straightened her uniform. "I believe, Mr. President, that we have two options. We can let the Council face the consequences of their actions, possibly watching millions die as the Vorax return, or we can save them from themselves," Chen finished, "even after their betrayal." "Yes, sir. But if we choose to help, we do it on our terms this time, not theirs." Chen looked around the room at Earth's leadership. "Opinions?" The defense minister spoke first. "If we let the Vorax gain a foothold again, eventually they'll come for us too. We should act." Others nodded in agreement. "Very well," Chen said. "Admiral Reyes, prepare a plan. But remember, this time, humanity holds all the cards." As the meeting ended, Reyes stayed behind with Chen. "They fear us because they need us," she said quietly. "And they hate that they need us." Chen nodded. "A dangerous combination. But useful," Reyes added with a small smile, "if we play it right." The council chamber fell silent as the doors opened. Ambassador Michael Chen walked in, exactly as he had walked out 7 months earlier. He wore the same black diplomatic uniform, the same calm expression. But everyone in the room could feel that something was different. The Arcturian High Minister rose from his seat, leaning on his ceremonial staff. "Ambassador Chen, Earth has finally decided to return to us. We welcome you back to the Council." Chen didn't smile. "I'm not back. I'm here to deliver a message." Murmurs spread through the chamber. The Thalosian ambassador's scales darkened with anger, but he remained silent. "As you may have heard," Chen continued, "we've detected Vorax scout ships at the edge of charted space. Their trajectory indicates they will reach Thalosian territory within 2 standard weeks." Now the murmurs grew louder. The Vorax were the stuff of nightmares for many species. "Humanity is prepared to help defend against this threat," Chen said. This brought hopeful expressions to many faces. "But we have terms," the Arcturian nodded. "Of course, we can discuss." "There will be no discussion," Chen interrupted. "There will be acceptance or rejection. These are our terms." He pressed a button on his wrist device. The large central display in the chamber activated, showing the Council's galaxy-wide communication network. "First, this meeting will be broadcast throughout all Council space. Every citizen of every world will hear what I'm about to say." The Arcturian looked alarmed. "That's not how Council meetings—" "Second," Chen continued as if the minister hadn't spoken, "the Council will acknowledge publicly the conspiracy against Earth, the deliberate campaign to keep humanity politically weak while exploiting our military and technological contributions." Shocked looks spread across the chamber. The Thalosian ambassador started to protest, but Chen raised his hand. "We have evidence, recordings, communications, plans approved by this Council's Security Directorate. We know everything." The Arcturians' blue skin paled. "How did you—" "Third," Chen went on, "the Council will restructure voting rights to prevent future manipulation. No species will hold more power simply because they joined the Council earlier. Contribution, not seniority, will determine influence." Now angry shouts erupted from several of the older species representatives. Chen waited calmly for the noise to die down. "Fourth, humanity and other younger species will receive full technology sharing privileges. No more keeping advancements from us while using our innovations." The Arcturian raised his hands for quiet. "Ambassador Chen, these demands are unprecedented. The Council needs time to consider." A junior aide rushed into the chamber, interrupting the minister. "Urgent. Message from the border monitoring stations. Vorax attack ships have been detected near Thalosian Colony Outpost 7. The chamber erupted in panic. The Vorax were moving faster than expected. "Impossible," shouted the Thalosian ambassador. "Our intelligence said we had at least 2 weeks. Chen remained calm. "Your intelligence was wrong." The Arcturian looked at Chen with sudden understanding. You knew. We've been tracking the Vorax for weeks, Chen admitted. We wanted to be certain of their movements before coming here. The Arcturian studied Chen's face. And if we refuse your terms? Then we will protect our own territory and let the Vorax be your problem, Chen said simply. The chamber fell silent again. Everyone knew what that meant. Without human help, many worlds would fall to the Vorax. This is blackmail, hissed the Thalosian ambassador. Chen turned to face him directly. No, this is diplomacy, the kind you taught us. The Arcturian conferred quickly with other senior council members. The reality of their situation was clear. They needed humanity now more than ever. Very well, the Arcturian finally said. We accept your terms. The reforms will be implemented immediately. Chen nodded. Good. Earth's fleet stands ready to coordinate with Council forces. Admiral Reyes will contact your military commanders within the hour. As Chen turned to leave, the Arcturian called after him. Ambassador, did your people plan this too? Did you know the Vorax would return when you withdrew from the Council? Chen paused at the door. No, that was just fortunate timing. He allowed himself a small smile before walking out. What the Council didn't know was that human stealth ships had already been deployed to key defensive positions weeks earlier. Earth's intelligence had picked up signs of the Vorax return early, and humanity had prepared accordingly. They weren't willing to let innocent lives be lost while politics played out. That wasn't humanity's way. In Earth's military headquarters, Admiral Reyes watched the feeds from a dozen battlefronts. Human captains were taking command of mixed-species fleets, bringing order to the chaotic defense efforts. Defensive line holding in Sector 4, reported a communications officer. Vorax advance halted near Proxima Colony. Reyes nodded with satisfaction. And the Thalosian homeworld? Human battle group Vigilant has taken position in their system. The Thalosian military is cooperating, reluctantly. Reyes smiled slightly. I imagine they are. A junior officer approached with a datapad. Admiral, we're receiving reports from across Council space. The broadcast of Ambassador Chen's meeting with the Council has reached nearly every world. And the reaction? Reyes asked. Mixed, but mostly positive. The younger species are celebrating. Some of the older ones are protesting, but they're citizens. The officer hesitated. Yes? Many seem relieved, Admiral. Like they knew something was wrong with the old system but couldn't say it out loud until now. Reyes wasn't surprised. Power concentrated for too long often led to corruption. Sometimes a system needed to be broken before it could be rebuilt properly. Her screen lit up with a new message. The first fleet of Vorax main battleships had been detected. The real fight was about to begin. All ships, battle stations, she ordered. Show the Council what humanity does best. As the new alliance prepared for war, humans revealed technologies they'd been developing in isolation, innovations that even their closest allies never suspected. The advanced shield systems that protected Earth now expanded to cover vulnerable colony worlds. New weapons capable of disrupting the Vorax hive mind communication gave Allied fleets a critical advantage. Aboard the Earth vessel Defiance, Captain Nadia Okonkwo addressed her mixed-species crew before they entered battle. Today we fight not just for humanity, but for all sentient beings in this galaxy, she told them. They thought without them, we would falter. Instead, we leaped forward. Now let's show them what humanity does best, solving impossible problems while making everyone else look slow. A cheer went up from the human crew members. The alien crew members looked confused at first, then joined in hesitantly. They were about to learn what it truly meant to fight alongside humans at their full potential. The Defiance moved into attack position, its advanced engines glowing with a power that no Council scientist had thought possible. The battle for the galaxy's future was about to begin. The battle against the Vorax lasted 3 terrible weeks. When it was over, 80% of the Vorax invasion force had been destroyed. The remainder retreated back to the uncharted regions of space from which they had come. But victory had come at a cost. Several colony worlds had been damaged or destroyed. Thousands of lives had been lost. The combined fleet, with human vessels at its core, stood victorious, but bloodied. In the aftermath, as ships limped back to their home ports and rescue operations continued on the hardest-hit worlds, the galaxy watched as humanity implemented its new role in galactic affairs. The Trade Committee will now hear proposals for rebuilding the damaged trade routes in Sector 7, announced Zeril, the Quillarian representative. She looked to her right, where a human sat in the committee chair position. Director Marcus Jackson nodded. Thank you, Representative Zeril. Let's begin with the proposal from Proxima Centauri. This scene was playing out across the Galactic Council. Humans now chaired 3 critical committees: trade, defense, and technology development. Positions that they had been kept from for centuries were now theirs by right, part of the agreement that had been made during the Vorax crisis. Some of the older species had protested initially, but their objections had faded as humanity demonstrated, not domination, but effective leadership. Trade routes were being re-established faster than anyone had predicted. Defense systems were being upgraded. New technologies were being shared more openly than ever before. At the Central Medical Facility, on Proxima Centauri III, Dr. Alara Novoshi smiled as she watched the human medical team working with her staff. The facility was now a hub for the Mutual Advancement Protocol, the new system humanity had established for technology sharing. The new cellular regenerator is remarkable, she told the human doctor leading the team. It's healing patients in half the time of our previous methods. Dr. Sarah Chen nodded. And your atmospheric purification system is something we've never seen before. Our engineers are already working on ways to adapt it for our colony worlds. This was the essence of the protocol. Any species could access human technological developments, but only by contributing equally to a shared knowledge base. The old system of the advanced species hoarding their technologies while taking humanity's innovations was over. I've put in an application for my assistant to join the educational exchange program, Dr. Envoshi said. Is it true that students live with human families during their time on Earth? Yes, Dr. Chen replied. The cultural component is just as important as the technical training. We found that most of the misunderstandings between species came from simple ignorance of each other's ways. The cultural exchange programs had become the most sought-after opportunities in the galaxy. Living with humans, learning their ways, this was no longer seen as studying a primitive species but as gaining valuable insight into a culture that had proven itself exceptional. Admiral Kavath of the Rigelian Defense Force stood on the observation deck of Earth's orbital command station. Through the viewport, he could see a mixed fleet of ships performing coordinated maneuvers. Your training methods are unorthodox, he told Admiral Reyes, who stood beside him. But I cannot argue with the results. Reyes smiled. Humans have always valued individual initiative alongside coordinated action. It gives us flexibility in battle that more rigid command structures don't allow for. Kavath nodded. His own son was now training with the Human Fleet Academy, something that would have been unthinkable a year ago. The reforms you demanded, Kavath said carefully. Many of the older species still resent them. I know, Reyes replied. Change is difficult, especially for those who benefited from the old system. But look at the results. She gestured to the fleet outside. More effective defense, better cooperation, a stronger galaxy for everyone. Kavath couldn't disagree. In just 5 years, since humanity's dramatic withdrawal, the galaxy had transformed. The council was more balanced. Trade was more fair. Technology was advancing faster than ever. And the Thelosians? Kavath asked. Adjusting, Reyes said diplomatically. The Thelosian Empire had been forced to return all illegally seized territories. Their government, with young Telex now in a position of influence, was slowly reforming. In a university hall in New Beijing, on Earth, Professor Li Wei, formerly a factory supervisor during the withdrawal, addressed a class of mixed-species students. The withdrawal was never about humans leaving the galactic community permanently, he explained. It was about forcing a necessary reset of an unfair system. A Sindari student raised a crystalline appendage. But wasn't it risky? What if the Council had united against Earth instead of falling into chaos? Very risky, Lee agreed. But our analysts predicted that the interdependencies created by centuries of human contributions would make unity against us nearly impossible. The older species had become too dependent on us, even as they tried to keep us politically weak, and Diuauzur, Arcturian student, spoke next. My grandfather served on the Council during that time. He still believes humans planned the whole thing, including the Vorax return. Lee smiled. A flattering theory, but no. We didn't plan the Vorax invasion. We were simply prepared to use whatever opportunities arose to create a more equal galaxy. After class, Lee met with his department head, Professor Takahashi, whose lectures on A Galaxy Without Us had been so popular during the withdrawal. 5 years, Takahashi mused as they walked across the campus. 5 years since we walked away, and now the galaxy is transformed. Lee nodded. The new generation of diplomats and leaders understands what the old one didn't. Partnership means equality. And sometimes, Takahashi added with a smile, the best negotiating tactic is simply walking away until they realize what they've lost. In her office at the Council headquarters, Admiral Reyes, now Earth's senior Council representative, reviewed intelligence reports. 3 other junior species had begun asserting themselves using humanity's playbook, not with threats or withdrawal, but with confidence and the knowledge that their contributions were valuable. She smiled. The galaxy was finally evolving into something better than the hierarchy they had once accepted as inevitable. All it took was humanity's willingness to stand alone and show the stars what that truly costs everyone else. On her desk sat a small metallic sphere, the same one Ambassador Chen had used to project the countdown that began this journey. It was kept now as a reminder that sometimes the bravest diplomatic move is not compromise, but having the courage to walk away, and the wisdom to return when the time is right, on your own terms. Message from the Arcturian High Minister, her assistant announced. He's requesting Earth support for the new educational initiative. Reyes nodded. Tell him we'd be honored to help. She paused, then added, and remind him that we expect equal recognition for all contributing species on the project. Some lessons, Reyes thought, needed regular reinforcement, but the galaxy was learning. Slowly but surely, it was learning that humanity wasn't just another species to be used and controlled. They were partners, equals, and now everyone knew exactly what it cost to forget that fact.